So there's always some form of external event happening around us, right? There's events. Some example of those events is maybe, okay, you're losing your job, you have a conflict with a colleague, you get a nice opportunity to do something. So we always receive information from the outside world. And the way we process those information is through our 5 senses. You can hear me, you can see me thanks to the technology. You can touch the desk you're on, the chair you're on, the clothes on your body. You can smell, if you have food around you or coffee, you can maybe smell that. If you eat something, you can get the taste of that food. So we interact and understand our environment through our 5 senses. Now, have you ever wondered, why is it that people don't see the world in the same way? Two people can go to the same exact movie or to the same exact presentation, and one people will be like, wow, that was amazing. And the other person can be, oh my God, that was so long. So what happened? What's the difference? The difference is how we interpret those information that come to us. Now, here's the thing. We receive so much information every single second that consciously we cannot process all those information. So our brain does something phenomenal. It filters those information. And it does that in 3 steps by deleting, distorting, and generalizing the information that comes with us. What does that even mean? Well, for example, right now in my room, I have my fan is on and I have my AC is on. And if I start to listen to them, I can notice a noise coming from both of those things. But 15 seconds later, that information was being deleted by my mind. I wasn't aware of that noise because it wasn't useful for me in doing this presentation. So for me, in order to produce the best results and the best behavior right now, my brain is automatically filtering this information. It's the same thing when you live in a noisy environment and you have a friend come over and they tell you, wow, your place is so noisy, I can hear the cars. And you're like, huh, I'm used to it. I don't notice it anymore. Isn't that interesting? So ask yourself, what else are you deleting like this? What else are you not pretending to see out of habit? The second thing is that we distort information. The other day I was walking in the street and I saw a person further down in the street, and straight away my mind was like, oh my God, this is that person. And I automatically assumed that was the person I knew. And as I was getting closer to that person, I realized it was a completely different person. But in that moment, that thing I saw was being distorted. The information was being distorted by my brain in order to match personal historical reference that I already have in my brain. So that's interesting how we distort informations. And of course, if you think about how much we generalize the world around us, it's pretty fascinating. We have all those stereotypes about French people complain a lot, Americans are fat, and we just generalize that to our whole population. Why? Because it's so much easier to process the world and the amount of information we have when we can generalize it into a chunk. When you learn to open a door when you're young, you then generalize that experience to every single door. Today you walk in your apartment or you go somewhere and you've never opened that one particular door, but you never stop to think about it. Hey, how am I going to open this? You just go, So we generalize this experience to everything. You learn to drive one car, and then you can drive every car. Now, here's the reason why we don't see the world the same way. Here's the reason why people are so unique in the perception, is because the filters that we have are based on our past experiences, the beliefs we have, the values we have, and our own self-image. What is the self-image? Is that identity we created for ourselves. Whether you think you're shy, introverted, too tall, too short, or too young, or too this, or too that. We label ourselves and we created that persona, that personality over the years growing up all the way to the person you are today. And that is your sense of self. And that becomes very interesting because if you grew up in Thailand, you're gonna have different values than a person who grew up in the other side of the world, maybe in the US or in Europe. But even people who grew up in the same family can be completely different in terms of their view of the world, simply because they don't agree on what are the main important values, or they don't agree on what's the right religion. And so all those beliefs we have really completely shape our view and our perception of life. So that means that we filter the information in a completely different, unique way, because our personal history is unique and nobody shares the same story that you have. And that is so fascinating, because what that does when this information comes to you and they're being filtered automatically without you even having to think about it, it creates a thought. In NLP, this is called our internal representation. A thought, a picture in your mind, a meaning that you created out of the situation. Have you ever wondered how fast you can see a person in the street and judge them? You don't know them, you've never seen them before, and your mind is, in a second, can already, judge the heck out of them. It's unbelievable, isn't it? And so all of these things is happening automatically beyond our awareness. But here's why this is so important, because how you think creates how you feel, creates your emotional state. It's very difficult for you to think greater than how you feel. And so your emotional state then drives your behavior, drives the decisions you make. And if you're in sales, or if you ever studied sales, you know that we make decisions not based on logic, but based on how we feel about it. And then, we rationalize why we buy it with our logic. But we all know that we respond differently to the world based on how we feel. If you're angry, if you're worried, if you're anxious, you're going to respond very differently than if you're calm, if you're curious, if you're interested, or if you're just happy. But there's one more element in this whole gigantic model of the mind. And that is a model, that is something that is often missed out. And that is the physiology. What does that even mean? That means your body. You see, the way you move, the way you breathe, the way you carry the body, the state of your health also affect your emotional states. And that's why today we have so many trendy, physical therapy, like working out. It's, I feel good after working out. I feel more confident. I feel like more, better about myself. It clears my head. Yeah, people will tell you, oh, when I do yoga, I reset, right? I reset, I peace out, I stress out, no more kind of thing. Or I do my breath work, or I do my Tai Chi, or do all my physical things, because it helps me not only with the way I think, but also to release all that emotional thing that's maybe been accumulated, or to just make you feel better. So we know that the physiology, the body, affects us and our state of mind dramatically. Now, if you were to think about a person that is confident, imagine this. Imagine there is a person walking in the street, right? And you see them and they're like confident. They exude confidence. How does that person look like if you were to imagine that in your mind? My guess is that they're standing a certain way, they're walking a certain way, they're carrying themselves a certain way, isn't it? And if you were to imagine now a person that exudes low confidence or uncertainty, my guess is that they look very different in your mind. Maybe they're looking down, they're avoiding eye contact, maybe they have rounded shoulders. And so that tells us what? That tells us that we already know subconsciously what certain posture, what certain things. We can tell by looking at people, their state, we can feel it. And then we have this habitual way of recognizing this in our environment. So what's very interesting is that this is interlinked. The way you think also affects your body, but by changing your body, you can also change the way you think. You can also break that state. I guarantee you, if you're pissed off, and if you cannot stop thinking about something, and if you go take a cold shower, you're gonna break that state that fast, right? You're gonna be, oh my God, what's happening, right? And then you come out of the shower and you'll be like, oh, what was I thinking about? Because the shock on your body just completely broke your state, that emotional state that was reinforcing how you think. And the most important is that our emotional state drives our behavior. And this is where it gets really interesting. Because on those events that are listed, they are losing your job, the conflict with your colleague, opportunities to act. There are many ways a person can act about this. They can either become depressed and be like, I'm never going to find another job. Oh my God, I'm going to get broke. I'm going to end up on the streets. Right? That's how they internalize that experience. Or they can be like, oh my God, I never liked that job anyway. Might as well find something I like. What a concept. And they can be happy. Yeah. Or, you know, they have a conflict with a colleague, and then they can go into the blame game. They can go into the gossip game, telling all their colleagues about what happened and, you know, starting a pity party at work. Or they can be like, you know what, maybe I miscommunicated something. Maybe he's going through something. You know, what can I do to solve this situation? And if you have a new opportunity, maybe you'll be like, oh my God, what are people going to say if I do it and it doesn't work out? And then it leads to that fear, that anxiety, that uncertainty, and then they don't do it. Or they just end up doing it. So I hope that that concept, that model of the mind makes sense, because it's, once you grasp this, you can put literally your life experiences, the patterns that you have, into this model, and you'll be able to see that what drives your results has nothing to do much with what's happening outside of you, but how you react to it and what you choose to do. I had a client that was, it was really amazing, because he was a high procrastinator. In terms of, on a scale of 1 to 10, he was a beautiful 10 of procrastinator. He was elite, masterclass kind of thing. And it was affecting him in his job, in his relationship. He was getting divorced because he was always waiting to the last minute to make decisions. And that, you can see how that becomes a problem very quickly in everything you do. And his job was involving him going abroad on various trips and things like that. And the challenge is that, you know, you have to apply for visa, flights. So his HR department was always, you know, behind him to try to get him to do things. And he would always wait until the very last moment. So here's what happened. When we started, you know, the coaching and the hypnotherapy session, we uncovered that when he was actually 7 years old, something happened. He was crossing the road, right? And it was a busy road. And as he was starting to cross the road, a car was just, you know, honking, and he got scared and he froze. And then in his mind, it was like, should I go? Should I stay? What should I do? That uncertainty about deciding in that moment, what should I do? And that event became part of the filters of how he makes decisions, because of the emotional intensity of that event, because of the emotional fear. And after that, he started to make decisions in the same way. And that small habit with time started to grow, ripple off. And in his, you know, mid-30s, it was becoming a gigantic problem. So what we had to do was to change that filter, change that decision-making process, change the meaning of what happened to that event, and turn what I like to say, the past into wisdom, so that that person is no longer controlled unconsciously by, you know, a pattern that was created 30 years ago, that's creating madness in his life and behaviors that are not what he wants. And so we did that work, and we cleared that, and we changed all of this. And that evening, he went back home, and he had an urge to sort out his closet, and an urge to send the document for his next trip that was, 2 months away. And the HR department was so surprised that they sent him an email to find out, what's happening. And that's just how much change can happen, in life. So the challenge and the whole thing about NLP is that we're not trying to change what's happening outside, but it's more about changing the filters that creates the patterns, the strategy that runs your life today. Because over 90% of your thoughts and daily actions and reactions are out of your awareness. It's just out of habit. It's something you do every day. You've learned to do that every day, and you just keep on doing it. When I was younger, I was very insecure. By the way, I'm 1.96 meters. I know it's hard to tell when I'm sitting down on Zoom here, but that's tall. For most people, they'll be like, oh my God, what? And when I was growing up very fast, when I was a teenager, it was difficult because I started to see it as something negative. Everybody was starting to tell me, you're so tall. Oh my God, why are you so tall? You're so tall. Do you play basketball? All this stuff. And they still do today. But you see, that event was starting to being filtered in my mind, and the thought I was creating and the feeling that was being created was, fear, was like, why is this, what's wrong with me, why am I so, why am I different? And it started to make me shy in my behavior with people. It started creating social anxiety, avoiding to be in the middle of a room, or trying to appear smaller, or all these things. And so that made my teenage years, very painful in this way, because I didn't have any form of confidence, because I just didn't like the way I was looking. And this, as this was growing, become part of my self-image, and then it started to affect, so many other areas of my life. So you can see how one belief and one, aspect of your identity, of, just a belief of how you see yourself, can completely drive every decisions and every behavior that you do after that. And you take this as what? As a fact, as normal. It's the way it is, right? People tell you when you're young, you're shy, and just because, you're a bit more quiet than your brother or something, and they tell you you're shy, you're shy, you're shy. Before you know it, you're like, yeah, I'm shy. And you spend the rest of your life shy because of what somebody said. I have no idea about who you are. And this is, the reality that we live in. And that's why changing those filters is the most important things you can do. Because once you understand you can change your mind, you can completely change